Okay. So I think folks are just running late this morning.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to the Board Accountability Equity Committee meeting. Thank you for coming this early. Good to see everybody. We're going to continue from our meeting last month where we've been looking at some of our schools that we feel could really use our equity in terms of resources. And I'm so pleased this morning, I see him now, to have Dr. Foy here from Andrea B. Williams School. I'm hearing such wonderful things about the school in the community. The culture there, the learning environment. I always say it has one of the most beautiful media centers in our district. So it's wonderful to welcome you this morning, Dr. Foy, because we do feel that your school is a good example of one of our schools where equity would go a long way to support the culture that I understand you're building over there. So welcome this morning. And to everyone, what we're looking for when I say equity is the learning experiences at schools where we see our highest performance. That's the learning environment, that's the classroom experience we want to offer all of our students at all of our schools. To that end, anything we can do in terms of equity of resources, equity of attention, equity of support, that's what this committee is hoping to advance. So at this time, I'd like to hear from our superintendent, and then we'll have Dr. Foy come up.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and I, too, am excited to hear from our principals and a lot of the amazing work they're doing to accelerate student achievement. This is one of our most important committee meetings and discussions because this is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where we focus on how our students are progressing to the next level so that they're prepared for college and career. So again, excited to illuminate some of the practices that are happening in our schools that I think we can all learn from, but also having the opportunity to talk about next steps.
I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't asked for an approval of the agenda, so we'll start there. Do I have an approval motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as published.
Your second? Okay. Moved and seconded that we approve the agenda for this November 1st, 2023. Also, we need a motion to approve the minutes from our October 4th meeting. Oh, we didn't vote. I'm sorry. Everyone who in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we need a motion for the approval of the minutes from October 4th.
I move that we approve the minutes from October 4th with necessary corrections.
Okay, and you'll send those over to Ms. Edwards.
Oh, I don't have any, but if anyone were to provide them, they would be authorized without having to reapprove the minutes.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Thank you. Dr. May, did you have any remarks you wanted to make before we have our guests come?
No, ma'am. Thank you. I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Feliciano to introduce our
Okay,
principals.
very good.
Yeah, so these presentations is a follow-up to our previous meeting on the comprehensive and support and targeted support designations that we did through the Chevron reports. We have 3 schools with us, which is Andrea B. Williams Elementary, Mercer Middle School, and Windsor Forest Elementary. First to present is Williams Elementary, Dr. Foy.
All right, good morning to our committee and board members, of course, our superintendent, Dr. Watts, everyone else, as well as our guests. I bring you Greetings from the land of purple and gold sunshine over on Wheaton Street, Andrea B. Williams Elementary School. Very excited and happy to be here to talk about some of the progress at Andrea B. Williams, as well as some of our next steps for sustainment. So jumping right in, coming in 2022 to the school, it was a bittersweet moment for me. Because it was me returning home where I began my career and spent 11 years. But I was greeted with the identification of CSI, or possible CSI at that time. 3 months after being on the job, we were identified as a CSI school, but the work began much before that date. That included teachers participating in grade level data team meetings. Now, that was already occurring, but what we did is we kind of revamped our data team meetings, as much as switching the days. When I arrived, data team meetings would occur on Thursdays. Collaborative planning meetings would occur on Tuesdays. I knew that that was not exactly the right way to do that because you need data to inform your planning. So we kind of made that switch. That was one of the first things that we did. One of the first things that I did as an incoming principal, of course, was talk to the staff to get an idea of where we were, what practices we already had in place, what needed some fine-tuning. And what I learned was that there was not a clear plan for assessing students' knowledge prior to the assessment. And when I say assessment, I'm talking common formative assessment, teacher-made assessments, those types of things. So what we did is and I have two of my three wonderful academic coaches there, Ms. Lori Clark Jackson, as well as Dr. Leslie Sweetenberg.
Please stand. Good to see you.
So what we did is we took in our ELA as well as our math, and we took a few days during the summer, a few evenings, a few weekends, and we looked at every single standard to be tested, grades 1 through 5, because of course those are the grades that we served. We looked at every standard ELA, every standard math, and we created pre and post tests for each standard. We do have the district pacing guide, which we follow. I want that to go on record. But we did kind of tweak it just a little bit so that it would allow for our pre and post testing. So what happens is our students are pre-tested on every standard the week before that standard starts. Those tests have been previously made. Our special education or exceptional education teachers, they make tweaks as needed according to modifications outlined in students' individualized plans. However, those students are given that pre-test, and teachers are able to see exactly what they know prior to teaching the standard. They then have a prescribed amount of time to teach, and then we do a post-test, and this is all before the CFA. So we're able to adjust instruction as needed. We found that helped us tremendously because we were able to get that real data long before that test. So once students are tested, once they are given that common formative assessment, we have found that they do so much better. In fact, in grades 3, 4, and 5, our pre and post tests, or our post tests rather, they really line up with our CFA data almost identical. So we know that the learning was relevant and true. So that was one of the things that we did. Another thing that we kind of pumped up a little bit, because I believe it was already happening, were the individual conferences with students. Now, these conferences used to look like the teachers meeting with the students on the grade level. But now we kind of beefed that up a little bit, where they're not just meeting with their teachers, but they're meeting with their academic coaches. They're meeting with myself. They're meeting with our assistant principal, Dr. Wright. So they don't just get to look at their data with one person. They're looking at it with the entire school, the entire staff. We identified our students And I'm very glad that we did, but in our data room, and you'll see on one of these slides a picture of our data room. In our data room, we identified every single student and where they fell based on the beginning of year diagnostic. Our students with disabilities were highlighted in one color, and our gifted learners were highlighted in another color, so that we would know, everybody who comes in that room, just who these students are. We wanted to know these students by name because that makes a huge difference to them, and it makes a huge difference to us when we are looking to inform our instructional practices. That made such a difference, and I'll give a very quick example of that, because there was one particular student who we all knew. We all in the school know that particular student, and that is one of our students with disabilities. But since everybody knew that name, I happened to walk up, this was last year, right before the holidays, I happened to walk up on that student, and from the direction where I was coming, I couldn't see who the student was talking to, but I can see the student was in the hallway during instructional time, so I made my way down there, because anybody who knows me knows that you're not going to be in the hallway during instructional periods. And the student didn't move as they saw me coming, so I kind of knew something was going on. As I got down there, one of our amazing custodial staff members was working with the student on some flashcards. Just something that completely warmed my heart, and something that we saw throughout the school year. So we're very excited that everybody is on board with that, because everybody knows who these students are. So we leveraged our business and community partnerships, and that's been huge. That's been a godsend for us. We currently have 55 community and business partnerships at our school, from Georgia Power to, everybody knows, Loop It Up Savannah. We have Savannah State University. We have Georgia Southern. We have so many. And they're not just donating to us or giving to us. They come all the time. Our students know many of their volunteers and participants by name. They come, they work with the lessons. This year, we kind of shifted, so now they're coming to our collaborative planning meetings when they can come, so that they can provide input as well. So we're very excited about that. We are one of the MSAP schools in the district, so we do project-based learning. So we have had lots of PD on infusing project-based learning and interdisciplinary instruction into our daily activities. And with that, the Twitter king, as I have been coined, we have increased our social media presence. That has been huge as well, because I can't tell you how many times I'm in Publix and I hear, you're that principal at A.B. Williams. Don't know who the person is, but they know the positive that's happening at the school, and we're very happy about that. Very easy when it comes to our Title I and school improvement budget. I don't believe in buying programs, I believe in buying people. So 90% of our Title I as well as our school improvement budget is always allocated for staffing. That has helped us tremendously, because as you know, we're first grade through fifth. First grade doesn't come with paras. However, I feel that with the early education component, first grade is very crucial, and they do need someone in there assisting those teachers, especially with their numbers going up to 23 and 24. So we do have Title I paras who help out in our first grade, so that students coming from kindergarten, they still have that consistency there as they come from forming. That has been a tremendous help as well. And the bread and butter of the presentation as I wrap up, I'm very proud, and that's why this is at the top. Coming back to the school, leaving the school, I was the gifted facilitator. So when I left the school, there were 51 gifted students in the program. So to come back and find just 15 was very disheartening to me. So I did a need assessment, called in the gifted teacher who actually took over after me over the summer. We sat down, and what I discovered is that she had a lot of duties on her plate. She was serving the role of 10 people, in my opinion, from testing coordinator to, just so many different things. I took everything off her plate, every single thing off her plate, and assured her that it wasn't that she was doing anything wrong, but we needed to focus on growing our gifted program. Today, I'm happy to report that we have grown 86.6%. We do not have 15 students in the program. We have 15, and we have 13 students who only need one qualifying area to now get in. So we're very, very excited about that. Our beginning of year, end of year data last year, as measured by the iReady diagnostic. In reading, we started off with 64% BOY. We ended the year with 37%, 2 grade levels or more below. And in math, it was 71%, and we ended 37% as well. So we cut those down significantly. I'm proud to report that our BOY data for both reading and math for this year is very consistent with where our end of the year data left off last year. So that was a celebration for us as well. And as you know, we are one of 8 literacy leading schools in the district that we were recognized by State Superintendent Woods for our increase in our reading on grade level as measured by the 2023 GMAS. So that looked like 22% increasing to 49% in 3rd grade, 16% increasing to 33 in 4th, and 36 increasing to 42 in 5th. But overall, we had a 27-point increase. That, I think, is solely based on the Lexile and literacy plan that we implemented last year. Lexile is something that our students eat, sleep, and breathe, and they have to. And this is definitely a result of that. We're so excited because one of the things that we listed here as a goal of ours or a challenge was our students with disabilities not meeting that component to earn us some points as a subgroup. So I'm not going to go into that, but there's going to be a very, very pleasant surprise once those scores are released. I'm very excited about that as well. So next steps. We did exceed every one of our targets for 2023, but there's still much work to do. So we are being very strategic with our instructional focus walks as well as consistent review of our achievement and perception data. During our data team meetings this year, we're not just looking at achievement data, but we're also looking at our attendance. We're looking at our behavioral data, as well as surveys that we send to our parents and community. Our collaborative plannings last year proved successful, but this year we're doing a lot of vertical planning. So we are meeting, grade levels are combining, and we're doing extended planning so that they can meet so that we can continue to move that needle. Again, we will continue to monitor our Lexile plan weekly, and we have our stakeholder feedback, as I mentioned to you earlier. At this time, I hope I was very thorough in that presentation, but any questions that you have, I would be very happy to answer them.
Dr. Howard.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. It's good to see how you're utilizing your Title I funds with people. That's awesome.
Yes.
And I also love how you're utilizing data with everybody involved at the school. Could you tell me how you are involving parents in the process?
Absolutely.
With your data and also the other different things that you discussed.
Yes, ma'am. So again, being MSAP, we have to have an advisory council. Well, the members who sit on our advisory council also sit on our school council. But we've kind of opened that up a little more. So we have those very dedicated councils, but twice per year, I open it up to meet with parents, community members. We do it once in the fall, once in the spring. This also gives them the opportunity to sign up and volunteer. We give them the now Vista, but it was Beacon information. They come in like I said, it's November 30th and April 30th. That's when we hold those meetings. But they come in with their ideas. They come in sometimes with their gripes. Then we sit down and we work through them. We have a lot of activities throughout the year built in to allow our parents, our grandparents, community members to come in. Just recently, we had a meeting where those parents came in during arrival time, and they were able to meet with the teachers. We had a bit of a great grade change, flip from 1st and 3rd grade, so those parents were able to come in. But we provide those opportunities all the time. We utilize Bright Arrow a lot. And parents get all the information they need, and they're able to contact me. They have my cell phone number, they have my email, and it's just an open communication throughout.
I'd like to, oh, did you have a question? Yes, but. Oh, please, no, you go on.
Thank you, Dr. Foy. I appreciate your work. My question is about the budgetary impacts of emphasizing, that warm touch, which is really, really important and is demonstrating itself in your results. Does that create a budgetary challenge for you, putting the emphasis on personnel as your approach to moving student growth? Because a lot of times we talk about the expense of additional teachers as being insurmountable, and that doesn't sound like what you've experienced. So I'm just wondering, as a budget leader, what does that look like, or what consequences or benefits have? Well, we know some of the benefits. What's the challenge of your approach from a budgetary sense?
I would say probably the level of experience of the educators who are applying. And that can be a positive as well as a negative. It's a positive because the price tag is not as high. However, it requires a lot more PD. It requires a lot more from myself because I don't, and the academic coaches as well, I don't bring anyone in that I don't put my hands on to give them the training that they need. So that does require a lot more manpower, a lot more hours of training, and sometimes, at least in the very beginning, them being outside of the building because I do believe in leveraging on others' expertise, so sending them different places so that they can get the training that they need for their individual areas. So price tag wise is good. We haven't had any issues, but again, with the shortage of personnel, that's probably the challenge that we have.
So that's a very interesting answer. Thank you. So that it's extra time and effort that you're investing, and I know sometimes principals in the past, and even at A.B. Williams, get teachers that are absolutely terrific at reaching young people, and then they get poached away. But we're not seeing that. You have high fidelity. People want to stay with you. So what is the magic part of that formula of that touch, of you putting hands on people in their development that other principals may learn and benefit from? What's some secret sauce in there that you can share with folks?
Relationship building is key. It is key. So I make it a point to get to know my staff completely. I want to know your family. I want to know your dog. I want to know everybody. We have events both on and off campus to build that camaraderie between staff members. I'm very happy to say that we only had 2 staff members not to return, and unfortunately, one of those staff members passed away in March. So receiving emails constantly every single day for people wanting to come to the school. So we're obviously doing something right. In addition to that, I think it may have something to do with my, while I definitely do inspect what I expect. At the same time, I'm a people's person, and that's just who I am by nature. So every meeting is not going to be stuffy. I'm going to find a way to joke and laugh in a meeting. Whenever I see that the staff is getting just a little testy, just like yesterday, I was up 4 o'clock yesterday morning, and they can tell you baking pound cakes, so I can kind of sweeten the moment a little bit. So little things that you have to do.
Wow.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, I want to go back to your teacher-made test, the test that you used before the actual test. You were able to make sure that the rigor of those tests equaled the actual, 'cause sometimes that calibration is off. The teacher-made test tends to be a bit more easy than the actual thing. So how are you able to make sure that rigor was there that really could tell you if the kids were ready?
My team back there can tell you the thing is the language of the standards. The language of the standards. And a lot of times the reason those teacher-made assessments are easier is because the teachers aren't literally looking at the precise language of the standard. What is it that this child has to do? What is it that they are expected to produce or create? So when we sat down last summer and we made those assessments, that's exactly what we looked at, the language of the standard and making sure that we kept it consistent.
That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
I hope every principal in the district is hearing that this morning, because that is key.
Yes, ma'am.
I think. I've often seen where teachers become a little offended if they are told that their language is not. But if you can connect it and say the standard is the key, it's not just me telling you.
That's right.
You know, it's the standard and the language that's going to make the difference. The other thing is, what are your STEM efforts? I've been hearing that you're getting closer and closer.
We are. We're so excited. Dr. Gilda Lyons, who the district has hired to come in as a third party, and she checks on us several times throughout the year. When she first came last year, and our very first meeting, it was a little different. And that write-up was not as good as I would have liked it to be. And being who I am, I challenged it just a bit. So we ended up scheduling a meeting, and she went through why she had the findings that she did, or she listed the findings that she did. So by the end of the year, she was saying to us, you guys need to call this state. You are about ready. And she said to me, Dr. Foy, I got to admit, when I first met you in last fall, I didn't know too much. I was thinking to myself, this is one of those test-taking guys. And I told her, and that's so funny, because when I first met you, I didn't like you either. So we have built that working relationship, but we have an amazing MSAP team. Everybody in the school has gotten on board. First coming, I didn't know what MSAP was. When I left, we weren't working towards a STEM certification. So again, by nature, I'm a researcher, so I had to go back and research everything. And I think the key was getting the staff to realize that it's not extra. The reason they were shying away from it prior to was because they felt it was extra work. But this is what we're doing every single day, so let's just find a way to tie it in. So in our collaborative meetings, they'll always hear me say, what does that look like? So instead of just giving, oh, this is what I'm going to do, okay, so tell me what that looks like. And then at that moment, we can figure out if it actually calibrates with our interdisciplinary STEM activity.
Ms. Grabowski, Mr. Johnson, any questions from you?
Excuse me, good morning. I'll just make a comment that it's clear that you have created a culture in the school that has led to success. And hearing, Dr. Hoskins-Brown asking what that kind of special sauce is, I'm not sure that's something that can be, like, I don't know, you can't really create a formula or a guidebook. It's just who you are as a leader. And so I think that leadership development component is maybe a takeaway for us in other schools, like, is there something that we can do, because we always want to be able to transfer successes to other schools. So I don't know if that's the formula of that leadership development, but I'm a big believer in the importance of the culture of a school and leading to success, and you clearly have created that. So I don't have any questions, but just offer congratulations for all your success.
Very good. Mr. Johnson.
A couple things. I have a comment, and I do have a question. First off, being out in West Chatham, I have heard good things about A.B. Williams, even all the way out there, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Not just from people in the community, but also from members of the staff who are probably the ones who are emailing you asking if there's a position open. But my question is, besides iReady, what other standardized assessment tools do you all use to get ready, to make sure you guys are ready for the GMAS?
So we were using DRC Beacon. We did use that. But other than that and GMAS and iReady, that has been it. My philosophy is that you do not need more tests. You just need to figure out how to get the students to understand the ones that you have.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
For coming today. And I think Dr. Hoskins-Brown's question of budget is what this committee needs to know, so that when we're ready to start the budget process, we know that you need more funding for personnel.
Thank
Keep
you.
going. So, and for professional development. Yeah, and thank you.
All right.
Before we leave today, after everyone has presented, I want our superintendent to give her spiel on what parental involvement actually is and looks like. It's very unique, and I think everybody needs to hear that, since that's a question we always are asked. So, Dr. Panton, I think middle school principals have the hardest jobs in this district, in the country. You know, our elementary kids are, they're still bright and eager and learning, and our high school kids see the light at the end of the tunnel. But middle school, I mean, that's the challenge. So welcome this morning. So glad to have you here from Mercer Middle.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, and thank you for allowing me to share all the great things as well as the strategies that we implemented, our next steps, our successes, some challenges, but also how we're staying positive and focused as we continue moving in the right direction. So yes, thank you to all board members, our superintendent, Dr. Watts, as well as other district level leaders and special guests. I am Dr. Christian Panton, proud principal of George A. Mercer Middle School, home of the Raiders, where our scholars consistently emulate Raider pride by being prepared, respectful, involved, disciplined, and engaged in everything that they do. Now, one thing I would like to say at this time, what you mentioned, Ms. Hall, is very true. Starting off in education, I was a high school math teacher. I was an administrator at high school. Never thought that I would be blessed with the opportunity to lead middle schoolers as well as middle school staff. So I definitely need to take a page out of Dr. Foy's book and look at baking some pound cakes, because it really does take a different train of thought as it pertains to supporting middle school staff. But so far, I would like to start off by letting you all know that throughout the course of school year 2022-2023, we implemented strategies as pertains to data-driven instruction, refining our collaborative planning process, as well as strengthening our focus on building literacy skills in and outside the classroom. So from the strategies implementation standpoint, we strengthen our focus on data-driven instruction, especially as it pertains to 2-station small group rotation schedules. We looked at using our iReady reading and math, diagnostic, and standards mastery data to group our students. There is a tool known as the instructional grouping tool within iReady that allows for you to actually execute that task. But then also we ensure that those iReady resources were consistently aligned to those Georgia standards, because we understand that our goal is to ensure that our students either master or get as close as possible to mastery of those standards in preparation for our Georgia milestones. But in order to support that as well, we created and implemented a reteaching plan where we used our standards mastery data to consistently assess, reteach, remediate, and then reassess those students in need of remediation. And we saw some definite growth within that as well. And when we get to our successes page, we will see that as well. But then also we ensured that we incorporated a spiral review type process that allowed for us to incorporate time to build upon some of those foundational skills using our data-driven decision-making processes. But then from a collaborative planning process, we realized it was necessary to refine what we were doing as pertains to designing and sequencing lessons. As Dr. Foy mentioned previously, yes, we need to make sure we have the data first in order to then determine how we need to plan for those lessons. So we increased our focus on standards-based instruction, from ensuring that our teachers really understood the power in deconstructing standards with the students, understanding how to create those learning intentions, and ensuring that they knew what success looked like, as well as to ensure that the scholars knew what success looked like through aligning the success criteria. And of course, again, making sure that we used our Godot resources for those standards task alignment efforts, because we want to ensure that every activity that our scholars engaged in was definitely aligned to our Godot standards, because we want to ensure that we're consistently maximizing our instructional time, but then of course, we ensure that we were consistently providing some classroom observation and feedback, where we were implementing our instructional coaching cycle to ensure that our teachers consistently received bite-sized feedback on next steps in order for them to improve their instruction on a daily basis. But as pertains to the strategy of literacy skills, we ensured that we implemented daily journal writing. One thing that we saw for a period of time was that our scholars definitely needed some assistance with writing stamina. We saw that they struggled with copy and pasting some of the information and those constructive response items on the ELA writing assessments. So we ensured that we implemented this strategy to build students' writing stamina, as well as ensuring that we used the GMAS writing checklist to ensure that the efforts that our scholars were making was definitely aligned and met all the expectations for GMAS writing. But then also we ensured that we consistently found ways to build upon classroom literacy through
reading and writing efforts as well, and continue to maximize our usage of iReady. But that as pertains to the allocation of our additional support funds, one thing that we definitely see here is that we definitely ensure that the majority of our funds were allocated to personnel. So we continue to invest in 2 academic coaches, one that was aligned to ELA and one to support math. However, we ensured that our ELA coach also supported social studies teachers, but then our math coach also supported our science teachers. But then collectively, they supported all of the connections teachers. We continued investing our family and community relations specialists because we understand the importance of closing that gap between home and school. But then this year, we looked at advertising for an MTSS teacher specialist to assist with our tier 1, 2, and 3 interventions. But then, of course, we continued with our instructional paraprofessional. However, we were fortunate this year as well to receive additional funds to increase from a part-time secretary in the front office to a full-time secretary, as well as ensure that we retained 2 additional teacher positions that would ensure maintaining stability of our master schedule. The remainder of those funds, of course, were allocated to professional development that was based on our comprehensive needs assessment that was conducted, as well as to ensure that we provide instructional supports to our scholars through after-school tutorial, as well as our Saturday Academy sessions. We continue to use those funds for reading materials, as well as instructional technology, as well as ensuring that we provided all instructional supplies and resources within all 4 of those core content areas. Now, as it pertains to our successes, one thing that we're definitely proud of is that through continuous conversation as well as acquisition of funds through the Georgia Power Equity Through Education grant, we were able to start the process of looking at attaining STEAM certification. So through conversation with our STEAM thematic specialist, Mr. Michael Riccio, he's a very phenomenal guy. I'm also meeting with him today as well. We were able to develop our program known as the Raider Nation Planeteers. So a planeteer, if you ask yourself, well, what is a planeteer, Dr. Panton? A planeteer is a scholar who is very passionate about saving the planet and ensure that there's a healthy planet for all to enjoy. But also a planeteer understands that they have special gifts and talents, as well as some of their colleagues, as other classmates, where they could come together and continue to be solutions looking for problems. So we're using that concept and that mindset to ensure that all of our PBL activities are surrounding our theme of the Raider Nation Planeteers. So if you look at that, it may ring a bell as pertains to those who grew up watching Captain Planet, because we focus on everything from earth, wind, fire, water, and heart, which are the 5 tenets of what it means to be a Raider Nation Planeteer. But then also, we were fortunate as well to partner with Georgia Tech and the National Science Foundation, where we piloted a program known as YARDS. YARDS is an acronym for Youth Advocacy for Resilience to Disasters. Our scholars last school year, they were able to engage in understanding how to advocate for their community, how to understand how to build and develop resilience, and then they were fortunate to actually present their projects in front of the Savannah City Council, which was also made some positive media release for Mercer Middle School as well. One thing I definitely want to acknowledge as a success was that during my time at Mercer Middle School as the principal, I never thought it would be possible to actually receive this accolade of having Superintendent Student of the Month in the month of November 2022 for my 7th grade female scholar, Miss Robinson. But then also, we were very proud to continue on that positive trend of winning that stock market game and earning that in the Georgia's 1st congressional district, where our 7th grade scholars were able to go to Atlanta and receive that accolade. But now from a more academic focus as it pertains to our successes, one thing that we're definitely proud of is that we believe that the strategies that we implemented, that I previously discussed, allowed for our scholars within 6th and 8th grade to have that growth on reading on grade level. Where in 6th grade, you see we had a 6 percentage point growth, but then in 8th grade, we had a 2-point percentage growth. But then also what we see is that school-wide, we were able to move the needle from our spring 2022 GMAS to our spring 2023 GMAS by moving the needle for our ELA content mastery from 21 points to 24.9 points, but then also for math with a 4-point gain from 21.3 to 25.3. But now, as it pertains to our challenges, and we all experience some of these challenges, So from a school bus transportation standpoint, we understand that we are currently displaced out there at the swing site. However, some of these periodic late bus arrivals had a negative impact on our instructional programs as it pertains to our instructional focus block, as well as whenever we scheduled iReady diagnostic testing. However, we definitely stayed the course, and we ensured that we were able to still fill in the gaps for those students who were part of that late bus arrival. But then as it pertains to another challenge, one thing I would like to mention is that I'm very proud of the fact that through collaboration with my associate superintendent, we were able to turn that challenge around into something positive as we were engaging in a collaborative discussion as pertains to how we can partner with the EL program students over at West Chatham Middle School to ensure that we have access to all of their data so we could provide some type of intervention and supports, because we understand how their performance on the Georgia milestones also impacts various components of CCRPI for Mercer Middle School. But now as it pertains to our next steps, one thing we're definitely going to continue with is the data-driven instruction, as well as refining our collaborative planning processes. I'm not going to go into that any much further. However, one thing I want to mention is that from a literacy skills standpoint, in addition to the daily journal writing, one thing that we ensured is that we incorporated more paired texts and paired passages, because we want to ensure that our scholars are consistently engaging with those type of texts to further prepare them for the Georgia milestones. But then one thing we strengthened was our weekly collaborative improvement team meetings, as well as our leadership team meetings, where we strengthened our focus on how we monitored our data that was aligned to our implementation and student measurable goals within our short-term action plan. We ensured that we consistently utilized our data topic reporting calendar to determine which action steps we needed to monitor and report out on during our leadership team meetings. But then also we ensured that we engaged in weekly instructional rounds as well as leadership team focus walks, because we want to ensure that we are building leadership capacity of our leadership team members and grow them into more instructional leaders as they engage in that instructional coaching cycle, and they provide bite-sized feedback to their colleagues within the classroom as well. So at this time, does anyone have any questions as pertains to the strategies, successes, challenges, and next steps at Mercer Middle School?
Before I open it up for questions, I want you to answer the question Dr. Hoskins-Brown asked.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Foy. In terms of resources, what is your most basic need?
Our most basic need right now is definitely personnel, staffing. Yes, ma'am.
Same answer, same thing. Okay, all right, Dr. Hoskins-Brown.
Thank you. It's helpful to know that that's a consistent need. I applaud the work that you're doing and the results that you are able to show. Yes, you piqued my interest with the Planeteers project. So in listening to what you had the young people learning, it made me think about what I learned as a 4-H'er, heart, head, health, hands, and those different parts of your character being applied to your community.
Yes, ma'am.
One of several things that are unique about the young people that you work with is, one, the surroundings, their industrial surroundings, compared to other young people who will be looking at that and how they may have a front row seat to issues of environmental justice. I also thought separately that the preparedness that we often that we try to encourage community members to pursue, and that SEMA tries to amplify, particularly during hurricane season, is probably a message that these young people could help amplify in their families. So my question is, are they doing anything with EJ? Is that part of their learning? And are they also looking at resilience and preparedness given where we live?
So that's a great question. One thing I will definitely say is that last school year, through the collaboration with Georgia Tech and National Science Foundation, yes, our scholars were imposed to those different elements. However, as it pertains to Radiation Planeteers, we are starting implementation in 6th grade, and those scholars who participated last year in the YARDS program, they are now in 7th and 8th grade. So what we are doing is that we're engaging in conversation with them, and that's all part of our implementation process, to ensure that they understand how can they advocate for certain things as pertains to potential food deserts. And we basically look at a way of putting the clean glass of water next to the dirty glass for them to then engage in asking questions and say, okay, well, I realize I don't have access to these different resources. What can I now do differently to solve that problem? So which is why I'm consistently looking at them as solutions looking for a problem.
Thank you. And I just have a follow-up in response to that. So do you have a relationship with the 912 food truck? Do they?
So we're actually in the process of establishing partnership with the pharmacy food truck as well.
Okay.
So that way they are part of that process. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Grabowski or Mr. Johnson or Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, thank you again for your presentation.
Ma'am.
I actually grew up with many of your students' grandparents. I'm from the Woodville community, the Garden City, West Savannah, so I understand the culture. We all know that CPR saves lives. In education, the C is curriculum, P, pedagogy, and R, which is the most important, is relationships. So what are you doing to have an impact on the relationship as it involves not only the parents, but the community, the students, the business partners, because that's most important. Because what I would like to see is for every school to have the problem of teachers wanting to come teach at their school. And I do know that middle school is in the middle, and it can be very challenging. But the most important piece, because I see that you're doing a great job and you're making gains with the curriculum and, of course, the pedagogy of learning. But the relationship, could you talk a little about your relationship with
Yes.
the community and parents?
Yes, ma'am. So it's very interesting that you asked that question, because this school year we established 5 legendary core values. And our legendary core values basically are teamwork, relationship, accountability, compassion, which is very important, and always operating in excellence. So excellence is our 5th core value. And we try our best to live and breathe that daily, and we hold each other accountable to ensure we are consistently implementing those legendary core values. So I consistently leverage my front office staff, my media specialists, anyone in my front office, as well as my school nutrition team who may have interaction with parents as they come into the school, to ensure that they always have that positive interaction, because you are basically the vice presidents of first impression. But then also, I always leverage my family and community relations specialist, Mr. Green, to ensure that he is consistently seeking out and creating awareness and recreating awareness about what we are doing at Mercer Middle School and ways in which they can support us with consistently moving the needle on student achievement. But as pertains to engaging our parents, we consistently ensure that they are made aware of the ongoing academic standing of their scholars. We consistently leverage Bright Arrow notification to release those email communications and call-outs to let them know when we have our after-school tutorial, to let them know when we have our upcoming Saturday Academy session dates. And we consistently encourage them to come in and meet with our teachers as well as administration, so we can discuss ways in which we can close that gap to ensure the ongoing success, not just from an academic standpoint, but also from a behavioral standpoint as well. Because fortunately this year, I now have 2 school counselors who are able to share the love in ensuring that all of the needs of our scholars are met. Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask Dr. Panton, as a former long-term middle school assistant principal, I want to know, what could this committee do to help in terms of your reduction of in-school and out-of-school suspension? How could we directly affect that?
Yes, ma'am. So that's a great question. One thing I will definitely encourage each and every one of you to do is to come and spend a day with me, so that way we can see just the daily operation, to then determine where some of those needs are and where some of those gaps are, that we could then fill those gaps. But then also, as pertains to just finding additional resources that will allow for us to provide those ongoing supports, because one thing we know as pertains to Front Porch, as one example, is that we have to ensure that the parent takes their child to receive those services. And one thing that we're seeing is that if the parent doesn't have access to transportation, it becomes very difficult for them to maximize the usage of those resources. So we could find a way to close that gap. That will definitely be a way in which we can lower those numbers as well.
Okay. When you say that your teachers are getting training and professional development, are they getting professional development in terms of how to reduce the need to send children out of the instructional environment into some sort of punitive situation?
So we definitely empower our teachers with understanding how to leverage their colleagues, as in their teammates, as pertains to like timeout practices. So that way the student still engages with the instructional content, however, they're just temporarily placed in another location. But as pertains to in-school and out-of-school suspension, we always ensure that we put forth our very best effort from a very proactive approach. where we have actually partnered with Youth Court, and we find ways to actually engage in mediation where the student can advocate for themselves prior to us actually assigning that consequence. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Mr. Johnson?
I really do appreciate your report and all the gains that you have made there. Because I know, as we've heard, because with Mrs. Grabowski's predecessor, make middle school great again, and the challenges that come with it. So what do we as a board need to know that are specific challenges to the middle school age, grade bands that we might not know?
I definitely believe that you all are very much well aware of when we think about adolescent growth and development and those social emotional needs. And in order to support that, one thing we have definitely, incorporated this year on a consistent basis is during our instructional focus block, every Monday is termed SEL Monday, where our scholars engage in activities that are designed by our school counselors and our homeroom teachers, our instructional focus block teachers. They actually facilitate those lessons to engage students in understanding conflict resolution and how to be resilient and how to persevere regardless of obstacles and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I certainly hope that there's a chance in your busy schedule to sometimes talk with Dr. Foy and some of the elementary school
Yes, ma'am.
principals about what your basic wish is for kids coming into sixth grade from their schools. What could they do that might make your job as a middle school person easier and more productive? Because, as I said, I can't think of a more challenging position than the one you're in. But thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you. I would definitely say, despite the challenges, it's definitely rewarding at the end of the day. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have a few more board members here. Did you have any questions before we move on? We have one more school. Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Panton. Okay, at this time, oh, he gets a foot, okay. At this time, we're going to Windsor Forest Elementary. And we have the assistant principal here with us this morning. Good morning, Dr. Price Bell. How are you?
Good morning. Yes. Good morning. I'm Ms. Bryce Bell, the assistant principal at Windsor Forest Elementary School. Thank you for inviting us out today. I will be presenting on behalf of our principal, Dr. Janae Collins. This year, our focus is on sailing to success the Wildcat Way. So when I go through this, you'll see that we are navigating through our challenges, we're celebrating our successes, and we know that we have charted our path that we will see student achievement as well as professional growth for our teachers. So based on our school improvement plan from school year 22-23, the evidence-based strategies that we have implemented and continue to implement in this year is targeted small group instruction, which we call WIN, what our students need. In this instructional block, we work on differentiated instruction to include acceleration, remediation, and intervention. This block is supported by our resource teachers during this time. Our ELL teachers pull out, our gifted teachers pull out, and our SPED teachers pull out to support student learning. Because we want to protect the fidelity of this block, we have designated days for instruction, with 2 days focusing on reading, 2 days focusing on math, and then we have that writing day, which focus on constructive responses, extended responses for our students. Our block is designated with data-driven, so we use our CFA data, our standards mastery data, and our teacher observations to change our blocks and provide instructional practices there. So anytime you can see within 2 weeks, the teachers are adjusting their instruction as well as adjusting those groupings for our students to show success. Also, with our standards-based instructional practices, we have a lot of focus on our collaborative planning, where we focus with our teachers on developing clear lesson goals prior to going into the classroom, making sure they understand the learning targets and can convey those learning targets to our students. We work with what we call a show and tell model. So in our collaborative planning, what is also called as at-bats, our teachers practice these lessons prior to going into the classroom and providing that instruction. So they receive feedback from our academic coach, their grade level peers, as well as myself and Dr. Collins on the lessons that will be delivered. We focus on activating prior knowledge, and not just prior knowledge with the lessons that they're learning, but the prior year. We understand that a lot of the standards are closely tied, so we have our teachers to make sure that they're activating that prior knowledge for the grade level before and growing those students in that knowledge in that year. And then providing that targeted feedback. So we have ongoing feedback with our students, whether they're working on their writing or their ELA standards, but letting students know what they're learning and what we expect for them to learn. But most importantly, we want to build capacity with our staff. So we're real big on professional growth and professional development with our staff. And when we look at this, is the professional and instructional knowledge so that we can have teacher effectiveness and efficacy with our teachers. And because we are ESOL Hub, we focus on wanting all of our teachers to be SIOP certified. So we have all of our teachers that will attend that SIOP cohort. If we have new teachers, they attend that cohort, and then we have an ongoing rotating cycles. And our goal is 100% of our teachers to be SIOP trained to provide that ELL support for our students. Because we have a subgroup with our students with disabilities, we have that SDI training. We work closely with GRLS and Kim Bennett's team to provide that support to our entire staff, because those co-teaching teams can change each year. And then we drill down to work with professional learning with our current co-teaching teams each quarter. Then effective teaching strategies to include student engagement, working on that vocabulary, that content vocabulary especially, and effective questionings that are leveraged through our teachers. As Dr. Foy and Dr. Patton says, with our allocation of funding, we have put our funding into staffing. We recognize from our data that we needed more support in our 4th and 5th grade classes, so we have added additional teachers to reduce those class sizes there. Instructional supplies, we have data boards and materials, and not just data boards and materials for our teachers, but we want our data boards and materials to be student-friendly so that our students understand their data and they can use that data to show progression in their learning. We offer extended year for all of our subgroups, that's after-school tutorial and Saturday school, to provide that instructional support. We also have a full-time academic coach who supports our K-5 learners, K-5 teachers, in all academic subjects. And then we have our family engagement coordinator and contact person where we support our ELL parents and our parents who are native to our school. We have learning lab teachers. We just added a reading lab, which we call reading a la carte, because we're cooking up reading, success in reading. And then we have the continuation of our math lab. And then we have professional learning opportunities, and those learning opportunities are within the district, as well as we're promoting our teacher leaders who are providing PLs inside of our school during our faculty meetings for our teachers. And then our leadership retreat to plan for our upcoming year. So when we talk about successes, I say we're sailing to success the Wildcat way. So we're proud of the growth that we've made. We understand that we have a little further to go to show that success with all of our students, but we are proud with the growth we achieved in our upper grades in 3 through 5 for reading and mathematics on our iReady diagnostic test. We decreased the percentage of students scoring 2 grade levels below in reading by 12% and in math by 20%. We also increased the percentage of students scoring mid or above their grade level for reading 14% and math 19%. The number of students transitioning to the next grade level from school year 22 to school year 23 scoring at the beginning level on GMAS was reduced. And we're most proud of our subgroup of students with disabilities, with 64% of our 3rd through 5th grade students with disabilities meeting or exceeding their typical growth on iReady in math, and 45% of our students with disability exceeding their typical growth in reading. So we are very proud of that progress with our subgroup. Along with that, are our challenges. Because we're an ESOL Hub, we are currently supporting 274 students in our ESOL program. And with that, we have new and transferring students who come from various ability levels and levels of language acquisition. When people think of the ESOL program, they think of us supporting primarily Spanish-speaking students. But in our school, we have had an influx of students who speak other languages. So we're supporting students who speak Farsi, Dari, Swahili, Arabic, French dialect, Rwanda, and Pashto. So in our classrooms, when you see our students, our teachers are teaching students along with English who may speak 2 or more different languages and being able to support those students. And so that leads to another challenge for us is that lack of teacher confidence when providing instruction to our English language learners. And it's not that our teachers don't understand the content or can't deliver the content. It's because we're serving such a diverse student body that our teachers struggle with knowing if our students are understanding the content or if it's that language barrier. So when they encounter these students, they try to figure out what the next steps are. And most times they revert back to wanting to do those foundational skills. And in K through second, it's okay because they're learning how to read and write in English. But in 3rd through 5th, where those grade level standards are more than just learning how to read, it has a challenge for us. So they want to revert back to working on foundational skills during that Tier 1 instruction. And so our goal as admin is to let them know that although our students have language challenges, that we have to provide that differentiated support to them so that our students can have access to the curriculum and be successful. Another challenge is we have a transient student and teacher population. We're not losing teachers to other schools. We have teachers who have military families. They're not from Savannah, so they're moving back closer to home. They're furthering their education career. So last year, those were the teachers that we lost, which when we talk about training our teachers in PSYOP, now we have to train a new group in those strategies to work with our students. And then that limited teacher knowledge from teachers who are transitioning from other careers to include that GTAB program. And I think Dr. Foy mentioned that about supporting those teachers. So we have to provide them that instructional support and making sure that they understand the content and that they can redeliver that content to our students as well as our ESOL population. So those are some of the challenges that we faced last year and this school year. So based on our 22-23 school year, school improvement plan, we met some of our targets, but not all. With our targets, we really met our typical growth targets for our students, meeting or exceeding their typical growth, but not necessarily that proficiency, and that is something that we are working this year to show progress in. To increase our reading achievement, we, as admin, we've already started our training, but we can't wait to for our teachers to start the training and implementation of letters to see how that can support our literacy efforts with our students. We are a pilot school for Read United, which is a tutoring program for our 2nd grade students that focuses on the fluency pillar, and that was brought to us by United Way as well as the Rotary Club of Savannah. We use our Love Mentors to provide one-on-one reading interventions for our first graders. Again, our Reading a la carte reading lab that supports our K through 5 learners. We work with our literacy specialist. She comes in to support 5 of our teachers. So when we talk about our challenges of teachers who are new to the profession, she works with those teachers closely once a week, as well as we have that support for our 4th and 5th grade teachers because they are content teachers and they're providing all of our literacy support to that entire grade level. We're using that teacher specialist to support those teachers. We have a mirror integration, 10 sessions a week, our Lexia integration for our EL foundational reading skills. We use our EL teachers during that dig block to pull out and provide support for our students, but we realized because that was a challenge and a concern, the concern we kept hearing from our teachers is that they needed support in the classroom to support our EL learners. So we moved to an EL blended model where our EL teachers are pushing into our 3rd and 5th grade classes to provide that support to those students and those teachers. Again, our DIG, which is aligned to what we use with WinBlock. We use iReady growth monitoring. We just completed that assessment, and we're analyzing our data to see where we are and how we need to make adjustments as we move to not only our dig block, but what we call our war block, and that's how we prepare for GMAS. So as we're coming up with our plan for that, we will use this data. We use DRC Beacon assessments, and then we have an additional EIP teacher who is supporting reading for us in K through 2nd, and then we do writing scrimmages 3 times a year for our students. And to increase math achievement, we still focus on our DIG, which is our acceleration, remediation, and intervention block, the continuation of our math lab. We also use our resource teachers, which are our fine arts teachers. They have dual certification in ESOL. They're certified ESOL, gifted, in elementary education. So they push in during those blocks when they're not doing art, music, or PE. They push in to support our teachers with small group instruction. Again, that EL blended model where our ESOL teachers are pushing into the classroom in 3rd through 5th grade to support math instruction. We were awarded a math manipulatives grant, and so our academic coach, who is here with me today, Ms. Solomon, she works with our teachers to implement the math manipulatives for conceptual learning. We have math professional learning that is provided by the district, as well as our teacher leaders during those Tuesday morning faculty meetings. We are preparing for our mock GMAS assessment, and again, we use our iReady growth monitoring assessments 3 times a year. And although we did not meet all of our targets this year, we are proud of our progress in our student growth that we have shown this year. We are redirecting our focus, and our goal is to ensure that our students continue to grow, but most importantly, that professional development for our teachers, because we know that it's closely aligned to our students achieving.
Wow. Well,
Question?
this is so illuminating for us as board members to think, when I think that you said children with that many different languages, and we have some schools where English is 100% in terms of the student body. So is there a chance that there are adults in the community who speak, say, Parsi, who would be interested in becoming paras at the school to help our teachers in terms of reaching those kids who are having difficulty assimilating into the English language?
Well, I'm not sure about them wanting to become paras, but we do rely on our parents. Our parents are really good about translating for us and providing support not only to our students, to our teachers. Some issues, concerns that we have with that is that many of our students and our parents that come in, they cannot read or understand their language. And so that provides another challenge for us, because even with our Spanish-speaking parents, Amira, they can have used in Spanish, and iReady has a Spanish component. But we're finding that our students, although they speak Spanish, they cannot read and understand Spanish. So that presents another challenge for us. Would that be delightful for us? Because we love, we talk about the challenge there, but we love the diversity in our school. It's a pride point for us with our students, with our parents, when we talk to our parents, even if we're talking about behavior or, their favorite word of bullying, we say, no, that's not here because of the diversity at our school. We can't take it and we don't stand for it. So it would help us if there was staffing that could support those other languages at our school.
And it would be so wonderful for us as a district to become known as an international district where we actually graduate students who are multilingual into America, where we think that English is the only thing going. We actually have multilingual Americans everywhere. So kudos on everything you're trying to do there. And we are definitely, you can't just throw money at things like that. That's such a nuanced problem, a complex problem, but we certainly support you, and we want to know what we can do to make things better for you there. So thank you very much. And are there any questions from board members? Oh, okay, Ms. Grabowski.
Thank you very much for your presentation. 2 quick questions on your, and actually I have this question for Mercer, I forgot to ask. Your Saturday and your after-school tutorials, are those mandatory for certain students, or are they optional? So that was the first question. My second question, to the point of the ELL, and I agree with Ms. Hall that that's a very nuanced challenge. With that, are you working any with Inspiritus? Because I know many of the refugees come through Inspiritus that speak those widely, wide range of languages.
Yeah, so we are working with the Spiritists, and so when we have to set up parent conferences, they work with getting our parents there because many of our parents don't have transportation. We love and we thank the district for Language Line because that really helps us with communicating with our parents and sometimes our students. So we do definitely work with them, especially with registration, parent conferences, and supporting our students. And I think
The first question was about the Saturday and the after-school.
So our teachers review the data, and so we look at, it's open to all of our students. So our ESOL students, if their parents can bring them there, that's fine. We look at the students who are most needed who need that additional support for the week tutorials, but our Saturday school is open to all of our students because that's more of our GMAS prep and our writing camps that we have. So it's open to everyone.
But is it mandatory for any
It's
students?
not mandatory for anyone. Okay. No, ma'am, it's not.
Okay. Yes. Chair.
So, hang on a second. One of the things that you mentioned was a lot of new teachers, and so do you know what your balance is of seasoned and new teachers?
This year, we are supporting 3 new teachers to the profession.
Wow.
So, and when I say new, they came from another career, so we're supporting them there, and they're in our lower grades.
Okay.
So our K through 2nd supports those teachers.
Okay. So very soon we'll be getting into budgeting. So I'm going to ask you to do something that I hope you enjoy. I would like for you to let us know what you need for your school. You know your school better than we do. I want you to tell us, do you need more ELL teachers? Do you need more seasoned teachers? Whatever you need, because we want you to succeed. We want all of our kids to succeed. But I would like to start hearing from school principals what they need for their particular school. And so I'm going to invite you, this is coming from the board, let us know.
Well, right now, I can tell you, we've just earned 2 additional ESOL teachers. Along with earning those 2 ESOL teachers, last week, we enrolled 8 additional ESOL students to come into our school who, and I think when our ESOL teachers told us the data from that, only 1 out of those 8 students looked like they were going to test out of the program. So that's only 1 that has that language acquisition that would be less of a challenge for us. So in supporting our ESOL population, I would say additional ESOL teachers because we would like to use the same model that we use. My background is in special education. We use for special education, having those teachers, those collaborative teachers in the classroom, having that co-teaching model where our ESOL teachers are supporting the general ed teacher. That would be ideal for us because we support so many ESOL students. We would love more special education teachers also, if there was a possibility, because we have a high number, we have our subgroup, but that high number is in 4th and 5th grade where we're supporting a lot of our students. And although we've lowered the class sizes, those teachers are still working with 10 or 12 students in 1 grade level of varying disabilities. So that would allow us some support and some help there.
Well, you're very fortunate. You, Dr. Panton and Dr. Foy, you have every decision maker in this district just about in this room at this time. And what we're hearing loud and clear is that staffing is the key. In all 3 of these situations, staffing is what we need to really look at to help you move forward. So we really appreciate that. And before Dr. Watts closes with her. Oh, yes.
Again, thanks for your presentation. I'm sitting here trying to imagine what it would have been like for me as a second grade teacher in that 1983 to have children in my classroom with multiple languages. I just can't imagine it. So I've heard you mentioned about ESL teachers, ESOL teachers, and your special education. What about paraprofessionals? Because some classrooms may not have a ESOL teacher, but they have the students. So have you considered more paras at all grade levels and interpreters as it pertains to assisting parents? Because I'm sure that there are language barriers between the community and parents as well.
Right, so we currently have one ESOL para who supports our ESOL department, and we have 3 special education paras who support those grade levels. We have 3 teachers on board who speak Spanish, so they help with translating for us. We just found out this year that our media specialist spoke Arabic because when our new student who spoke Arabic was having some issues transitioning, she would meet the student every morning at the bus stop, not the bus stop, I'm sorry, at the front of the school to get him off the bus and walk him to class and get him settled. So we have those languages that are spoken by our staff to kind of support us throughout the day. Outside of the language line and using those outside resources, that would be helpful if we had additional support to help us translate with our parents. What we have found is that we will translate information for them, especially we're big with Curtis v. Cooper. So a lot of our parents could not fill out that Curtis v. Cooper application. So what we did was translate the application in their language and help them to, fill it out there and then provide it to Curtis v. Cooper. So we're using our own resources with Google Translate and DL Translate to kind of support our parents.
Okay. Rather than look at this as a disadvantage and a challenge, I think the whole district, we can look at this as a real step forward into the 21st century teaching, that we have a school such as yours where we can support it and make it, really blossom for these students. And that would be something we could really brag about as opposed to, just knowing all the wants that we have there. So thank you very much, Ms. Bell, for coming this morning.
I'm sorry. May I ask one question?
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry.
We're getting, to Mr. Ketterger's time, but we're going to steal 5 minutes. Okay?
I'll be very expeditious. Thank you so much for your presentation. I have one question I would like to ask. You made a statement a moment ago about us funding special education teachers. From your experience with the district, do we have a good system of supporting special education or special needs students?
Well,
Not to put you on the spot.
I think I'm on the spot. I really think I'm on the spot with that.
We support you.
well, even
We
if you
support
can't at this time,
It's just it depends
Gotcha.
to me the variant of the disabilities. Right now, we also have PSI students in our school. Our kindergarten class is also supporting students who are waiting to be placed in another classroom, and that brings on that challenge there because we have our kindergarten para, we have the SPED teacher, our SPED para, but it's not quite enough support at this time. So we are working with the Department of Special Education to see if we could get additional support in that classroom because those students can't transition to looking like the least restrictive environment for them.
Got you. Well, I really thank you for that comment. We, as the board, we really want to give special attention to all of our students and our special needs students as well. So let us know what we can do to support that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I ask the superintendent to give her parental involvement spiel, I want to mention that I had an experience this past weekend. I was around 100 3 to 5 third to fifth grade students. And in order to participate in the activity, they had to register with me their name, address, and phone number. And I was actually so disappointed that so many of our students weren't able to fill out that form for me. Once they filled out the form, then I would give them their food and an icy ticket. But I was really heartbroken to see that. So now that Dr. Watts is going to talk about parental involvement, it just made me feel that that might be one thing, because our standards aren't that clear cut, you know. Be able to write your first and last name, be able to write your address, be able to, as far as I remember. But maybe that's something that we could put a real thrust at our parental involvement to see that that's something that's happening at home, where the children can practice and practice and practice until they're able to successfully write first, last name, address, know that their city is Savannah, the state is Georgia, and their phone number. Because just for safety, it's important for our students to be able to do that. And unfortunately, too many of them were not able to do that. Okay, Dr. Watts, having said that, I'd like you to give your parental involvement speech.
So much for extending that question to me. As we embark on the month of November, that's a timely question, as November is Parent Engagement Month. And I think a lot of times, I too am a parent, we tend to be very hard on ourselves around what should we be doing to support our students and our children in life and in school. But through my experience as a parent, and also as a child myself, watching my mother parent as she worked 2 and 3 jobs, I really was able to I've been able to narrow down for myself and potentially others what good parenting is as it relates to academic achievement. And there are varying ways parents can get involved. You know, you can, if you have time in your schedule, to be the parent that participates in field trips and can go to the school and volunteer. Certainly, we support and encourage and applaud that. But the fact of the matter is, many parents cannot. I myself cannot many times, because I'm supporting 35,000 other students in the district. And so I am not a visible parent and have never been a visible parent in my 2 children's education. However, there are ways that all parents can work to support at home, and they're very simple. Provide structure at home, have bedtimes, check the phone at home, make sure your child gets a good night's rest and has their physical health taken care of. Speak life and hope into your child. You know, sometimes there are hard conversations, but you always want to end those conversations in the spirit of optimism. When parents do those things and they drop their students off at the door of the school, they provide a child that is ready to learn. And schools can then pick up the ball and take it across the line in terms of getting that touchdown win for students and preparing them for college and career. So I invite every parent to think about what their contribution is. Again, can be very simple things. If you have a child that is very young, I would say even infancy all the way up to 5, just simply talking to your child. The words in and of themselves increase students' literacy rates so that they don't come to school with a deficit and a gap around the words that they know and hear and can articulate. Again, all simple things. Parents, give yourself grace is the first thing I will say. Parenting is the hardest job ever. There's no book or class you can take. But practice very simple and consistent things will support your child's academic achievement and the school system as we work to educate them to prepare them college and career.
Very much, and thanks again to all of you for being here, Dr. LeMay and Mr. Feliciano. I guess we'll talk about scheduling for our next meeting at a later time. Or
I believe
that
it's
is right.
on the agenda already.
Yes, December 6th. Yes, that's very, okay, very good, because, and I certainly love this format that we had actual representatives from the school, the real foot soldiers, to be here this morning to really enlighten us about this whole matter. So at this time, we are adjourned, and Mr. Hediger, I'm turning it back over to you. This is your 10:15 time. We're about 7 minutes.
Thank you to our principals that presented on today. Give them a round of applause.